Hello, guys, and welcome to another episode of Cocktail Therapy, the podcast. I'm here with my friend Wendy Smith, and let me tell y'all something. Wendy is my co-host on my other podcast, The Size Up, where we talk about everything, all things pop culture, and we normally do that. Those episodes, record those live on Mondays. So make sure y'all tune in on Mondays over
Mhm.
on Facebook Live and on our YouTube page, the Size Up official podcast. But I'm so grateful to have Wendy here because we talk a lot about like our personal lives, a whole lot. And what Cocktail Therapy, the podcast, does is it ties my bartending brand into relationship content. So we talk about all things relationships, and it's not just romantic relationships. It is familiar relationships, friendships, siblings, the whole night. It's just we dive into relationships. And of course, a lot of times when y'all go to Cheers or whatever your Cheers is, your bar of choice, y'all normally end up talking to the bartender or somebody there about whatever relationship drama you got going on. Really, that's the whole thing. So that's the whole gist. This is like Cheers live, okay? Or Cheers, Cheers via the podcast, okay? So Wendy, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what you do, and then we're gonna dive into our topic.
Okay, so my name is Wendy Edinburgh Smith. I am 48 years old. I will be 49 in another month and some days.
We
On
getting
the
to 50. We getting closer to 50.
countdown to 50. I don't know how I'm gonna feel about that, girl. I really don't. I'm like in
I say
mixed
we take a
emotions.
trip for 50.
Man, it's gonna
I
be
like the beach and I like Greece, like it's my birthday. I'm just putting those things out there.
most definitely. Well, I am a single mom. I have a 19-year-old son. His name is Joshua. And I'm a widow. My husband passed away 10 years ago because it's
Oh
2000.
wow.
So it's 10 years ago. So I have a full-time job, and then I also have my business, which is a Mary Kay business. I am a beauty consultant with Mary Kay. Been with Mary Kay for 24 years. And skincare works, you guys. It works. And so I am branching off and doing some new things starting the new year. I have two new YouTube channels coming up. One is gonna be like a like a what would you say, like a one is Mary Kay. One is strictly Mary Kay. Makeup and everything like that. The other channel is like a vlog of things that I've tried, my weight loss journey, um, things that I'm going through menopause. You don't see many Black women my age talking about things like that. There
Right,
are women like that, but you don't see a lot of Black women.
right.
So I just want to create that page, and so I am venturing into doing, creating my own production company. So
Yes.
but
Okay. Well, normally we start out the episode with what we are sipping on. Uh
I'm almost done.
Wendy does not drink a lot. She don't drink like I do. Okay. So Wendy, what are you sipping on today?
I am sipping on some Simply Lemonade and a Sprite. I mixed it in with Sprite for
Really,
that
really,
piece.
really refreshing drink.
Mhm.
Uh and I am drinking a strawberry lemon drop. Is what I'm drinking today. I got a whole thing I made of my lemon drop. I
Okay.
poured too much in. I did. But I feel like this little bit of glass right here, I'm gonna have several of those. So I will be fine. I'm at home. So it ain't like I got to drive nowhere
Mhm.
anyway. So praise God, amen. I could just go on to my room and get in the bed.
Yep.
Um,
My
so
son is
today,
not at work.
right. So today, we're gonna talk about how fathers miss it. We love our dads. Both of us are daddy's girls. I love my dad out my heart. And I know Wendy loved her dad as well. And daddies miss the mark. They mess up.
Yeah.
They miss a big time. A lot of times when you are a daddy's girl, you put your dad on this pedestal,
Mhm.
right? Like
Right.
daddy can do no wrong. But we know that that's not always the case. They miss it sometimes. They really, really
Right.
do. So we're gonna talk about that today. Wendy has a unique story. Well, not maybe not unique, but she has a story in reference to maybe not unique, but it's a story nevertheless. So we're gonna talk about it, and hopefully through these conversations that we have on this podcast, it hopefully can help others with their particular situations. Um, so Wendy, first of all, we are both kids, children of divorce. Um, my mom and dad got divorced when I was 8.
Me
Um,
too. I was
oh, he
8
was
too.
8.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
they got divorced when I was 8. Um, and so my dad's always been a constant in my life. That has never been an
Right.
issue. He
Right.
made sure that he was there. He made sure that he was present, regardless of what was going on between him and my mom, which I'm
Mm-hmm.
very grateful for. Even to this day, they cool. They homies now. Like
Mm-hmm.
they homies. But regardless of what happened with them, the main goal was us, the kids, and that's what I can never understand about other people,
Right.
and how they rule their lives. Because to me, I've seen it happen.
Right.
Regardless of what successfully it can. And a lot of people talk about Will and Jada so bad, but at the end of the day, what I do respect about them is they made sure that his son, she was like, nah, we not doing this step mama and stepson and all that. They didn't want to do all of that. They wanted
Right.
to make sure everything was cohesive for his son that he already had prior to her, and then for the kids that
Mm-hmm.
they had together. They
Right.
wanted to make sure that they had a strong family unit.
Right.
uh, and so we are going to kind of delve into that a little bit. So your mom and dad got divorced when you were 8, and let's talk about that.
Mhm. Okay, so I'm an army brat. I was born in Germany, and I have my dad has a total of 5 girls. He had 5 girls and 1 boy. My brother, he passed away when he was 2 years old. My
Oh.
oldest sister, Idella, she was the first, but it wasn't my mom's child. My dad had her when he was a teenager. And then in 1960, I think that's when they got married. If I'm not 1960, 1961, they got married in 1961. Had my brother 1962, and then my sister Larita was born in 1963 because she's 20 years, younger than my mama.
Mm-hmm.
And so my brother, he was born with a hole in his heart. So he
Oh.
passed away at 2 years old from pneumonia.
Wow.
So I've never met him.
Oh
So
wow.
in between my mom and my sister Larita and my sister Cecilia, my mom had a miscarriage. She
Mm.
had my sister Cecilia, 1969. So that's a 6-year difference between Larita and Cecilia.
Mm-hmm.
Then between Cecilia and me, my mom had another girl, and she was stillborn.
Oh wow.
Yes. So I was born in 76, so that's another 6-year difference, right?
Mm-hmm.
6 and some years
Mm-hmm.
difference. So I was born in Germany, 1976. We came back to the United States in
Hold on, Germany.
19.
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. We
Go
came
ahead.
back
No, no, no. Go ahead.
came back to the United States, I think in 1978. We lived in Fort
Mm-hmm.
Knox. Then we moved back here in Memphis. We lived in Raleigh. When
Right.
Raleigh was Germantown, was the place to be back in the 70s,
It
late
was.
70s, early 80s. Raleigh was the Germantown of Memphis, Tennessee. And so my dad, still had duties he had to do. So he would go to Texas, Fort Hood, Texas, and back. Okay. So I think before he retired, because my parents were still married when he retired, he was messing around with another woman.
Oh wow.
And so, I guess my mom found out about it, but he hasn't always been faithful to her.
Mm-hmm.
But she has forgiven him and forgiven him. And I think this time the other woman kind of asked him to get a divorce. She was ready for him to leave my mom, and I guess he wanted to do that, and so he asked my mom for the divorce.
Wow.
So I was 8 years old, and it kind of made me jealous because my two older sisters, grew up with my dad, and my time with him in the house full time was cut short. And so
Wow.
and so they got a divorce. I want to say in 84, because I was 8 years old. They got a divorce in
Mm-hmm.
84. They was married for like over 20 years.
Mm.
Um, and during the summertime, the first couple of years, I would stay with my dad.
Okay.
Well, my dad, he's a workaholic, and he will always be at work. He once after he retired from the military, he got a job at the post office.
Okay.
And so he left me there with his ex-girlfriend, and she used to abuse me.
Mm.
She abused me. And she said, if I told my dad, if I told anyone, I would never see my dad again. Yes.
Wow.
So I kept it a secret. My aunt kind of put two and two together. My dad has five sisters, you guys. He had five sisters and I think three brothers.
Oh
Three or
wow.
two brothers. Yeah. All of my uncles I passed. All the aunts are still alive. So I know the Edinburgh women gonna live.
All right. Right.
um, so my aunt, she told my mom, Clem, their woman's not doing right by Wendy. She don't need to be, with her alone. And so my mom told my dad, hey, look, if you're not gonna be there, Wendy can't come. I'm not gonna tell you that you can't see Wendy, but she's not gonna be there. I don't want her alone with that woman.
Right.
And so my dad respected that. And so I saw my dad anytime I had any events at school. He would come, and he was very present, but he wasn't present. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
And so when I became a teenager, I I still love my dad, but I became resentful. And
Right.
I had this complex, like, what was wrong with me? You didn't love me enough to stay around. That's
Yeah.
how I was. And then I had this thing where if you're gonna leave your family to be with another woman and take care of her two kids, you damn well sure gonna take care of me. And
Mm-hmm.
that's when I started asking them for everything. I would ask anytime I wanted something, he would do it because he felt guilty because he
Mm-hmm.
was not in the house. So I can remember one Christmas, my sister, my two sisters, like, which one is mine? Loretta was like, which one is mine? Yours is at the top. Cecilia said, which one is mine? Yours is at next to the top. And then the rest was mine. And they was like,
Oh
what? And
wow.
they used to ask my dad, why do you give Wendy everything? He said, because she asked. You ask and you shall receive. I
Yeah.
used to call him the ADM, the automatic daddy machine, not the ATM, but the ADM.
Oh wow.
and
Wow.
so and so that's how I was in college. I was when I teach chat when I was in for college for my first 2.5 years. Then I transferred to University of Memphis. But my dad was still paying child support. He had to finish paying child support until I walked that stage on college. So yes,
Wow.
that's what the divorce decree, either if I got married, if I did not go to school, he stopped at 18. But if I go to college, he would have to pay until I graduate. So
Wow.
I lived off
Your mom
100.
had a good lawyer.
Mhm. And then the military do not play when it comes to family.
Mm.
Um, so I ended up learning how to live off of $150 a month because that's all it was, $150. But
Okay.
I was really living on a budget. But if
Mm-hmm.
I needed any more money, he would always send me money, put money in my account.
Yeah.
Um, when I got pregnant in 2005, and I told my dad about it, he was happy that Joshua was going to carry the last name. Because, I said Joshua is not going to carry the dad's name because dad is not
Right.
going to be part of the life. And my dad was like, okay, he was happy about that because it was no girl, it was all girls. Edinburghs have nothing but girls. I believe my mom said she believed there was a curse for the Edinburgh men. My dad's father, he had women, and I'm sure I have uncles and aunts outside of the
That
marriage
you haven't met.
that I
Yeah.
have never met. Um, and my dad told my mom, I will never be like my dad because he saw how his dad treated his mom. And my
Mm-hmm.
mom, she was raised in a family where my grandfather cherished my grandmother and would not cheat. He never cheated on my grandmother.
Right.
He treated her like a queen. So my mom was basically like, no. She was like, no, I'm not going to do this. So you're going to either have to give her up or give me up. And I think he made that choice and say, look, when they said, I think my mom told me, he said something like, in the Bible, when it says what God puts together, no man can separate. I don't think God put us together. That's what he told my mom. Yeah. And so and I asked my dad, I said, my dad, what did mom do to make you straight the way you did? And he said, it was all me. She didn't do nothing. Your mom did nothing wrong. And so as a child, I didn't really know what was going on. But looking back, my mom was depressed. I
Wow.
saw my mom going through depression. We was not, even though I did not want for anything, it
Right.
was not like we had a lot of money.
Right.
We were struggling. I'm talking about Kmart was our favorite place to go.
Right.
And and I had and I kind of had the concept in my head, I don't want to be like that. I don't want
Right.
to be in a relationship. If my dad can do it, any man can do it.
Yeah.
And so throughout my adulthood, my dreams of being married, I never wanted to be married. Never wanted to be
Wow.
married at all.
So did that cause you to have trust issues?
It did. Not only a trust issue, I had a wall built up, a wall. And it took a lot it would take a lot for you to break through those walls.
Right. Right. Right.
And in 2013, me and my late husband, we got together. We knew each other from college because he went to UT Chat. And all I wanted to do was sell him some Mary Kay, some Mary Kay skincare. And we started talking and stuff, and we became really, really good friends. And then it just morphed into something more. And
Right.
he slowly but surely just broke those walls. And we got married. My dad in 2011, he was diagnosed with multiple myeloma. That's
Mm.
the cancer of the white blood cells. That's when your body
Yeah.
makes too much white blood cells due
Yeah.
to the Agent Orange in the Vietnam War because he fought in Vietnam. And so the doctors said, look, he can never go into remission, but we can keep him alive, up to 10 years. So I knew then, I have to at least spend as much time as I can with him because
Yeah.
I don't know how much time I would have left with him. My dad, not only was he working at the time of his diagnosis, he had been retired from the post office, but he also had an auto body shop on Hollywood,
Right. I remember that.
and he used to paint. His line. My uncle was the body work, not the body work, the mechanic work, like the
Right.
engines and stuff like that. My
Mhm.
dad, he would do the body work. He can take a totaled damaged car, like messed up, and
Right.
make it look like it's brand new
Random.
make it look like it's brand new. And because where I work, we was located on Jackson. Every now and then for lunch, I would go by and see him and talk to
Yeah.
him and stuff like that. And also, my dad had to pay my mom alimony. He still paid my mama alimony up until he passed.
Oh wow.
And so every month, I would have to go pick up her check and give it to her because he did not want a direct deposit. Well, September 2013, it was the day after Labor Day. I went to his house. I asked my late husband, he was my fiance then. I asked him if he wanted to meet my dad, and he was like, no, I got plenty of time to do that. And I was like, okay. I mean, I just wanted you to ride with me just to meet my dad, but that's fine. That's fine. I said, come on, Josh, let's go.
Mhm.
So I meet my dad, I see him for the last time, and he told me, this is the last time you're going to pick this check up for me. Next month, I'm going to start putting it
The account.
in her account, having it direct deposited into her account, and let your mama know it's going to be just a little bit more. And I said, okay. Because I think then he became a deacon at his church. And so I saw a real change in my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Thursday night, I remember he called me because he thought the Dallas Cowboys was going to play. And he was like, Wendy. He said, Winnie the Pooh, because he used to call me Winnie the Pooh. I said, yeah, Dad. He was like, when are the Cowboys playing? I said, Dad, they don't play until Sunday. He said, are you sure? I said, I'm positive. And I said, well, do you want me and Josh to come and watch the game with you? He was like, yeah, let's do that. And I was like, okay. I got my Cowboys gear. Let's go. He said, let's go, Cowboys. Whoop, whoop. And I was at work. I get a call from my stepmom because he had since remarried.
Mm-hmm.
I get a call from my stepmom and she's crying. She's hysterical. She said, your dad is in the hospital. He's in a coma. And I'm like, what? And I just lose it.
Right.
I lose it. And I get there. And there was nothing left they could do. He according to my stepmom, and I don't know how true this is because it's
Right.
still hard for me to get the concept. She said he must have been having a bad dream, and he was fighting in his sleep, and he punched the air or something and fell off the bed and hit his head on the nightstand. And I'm thinking to myself, if the bed and the nightstand is the same height, how could that happen?
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't make any sense.
Right.
And so, but the doctors told us he was bleeding bad in his brain,
Right.
and they could not go in for surgery because of the cancer medication. His blood was too thin,
Yeah.
and if they would have went in, he would have bled out.
Wow.
So we kept him alive long enough because my dad had another little girl after me. I have a little sister named Jasmine.
Mm-hmm.
She is 34 years old. Um, so she lives in Texas, and my oldest sister Idella lives in Texas. And so we kept them alive long enough
For
for
them to
them
come.
to get their goodbyes. And so as soon as I think Jasmine was the last one to come in. As soon as Jasmine came in, my stepmom was like, everybody here, say y'all goodbyes because I'm about to turn off the machines. There was another flag in my head. When the doctors turned off the machine, I left because I didn't want to see my dad take his last breath. That's
Right.
not the memory that I want to have with my dad.
Your dad. Yeah, that's hard.
And so my dad, he wasn't the perfect husband, but he was the best dad. He showed me what a provider is. He told me a man should have his own house, his job, and a car. If he don't have those three things, you need to go ahead and leave him alone. And I tell you, my first car after I got my license was a 1976 Chevy Chevette. It was brown. We called it the Brown Hornet. I got checked for it, but hold on. I said
But
the
you had a
people,
ride.
but I got a ride. The people who was checking me were walking. And I said, y'all can keep on checking while y'all walking. My feet don't hurt. Y'all must hurt. But he always told me, I better not see Nan Ninja in your car. And to this day, unless it's a dire emergency, besides my man child in here,
Right.
ain't no ninja been in my car.
What you say? You will not be Jody.
I will not nope. My dad taught me how to change a tire. He taught me how to make sure my oil is changed after I get my oil changed. And a couple of times in Chattanooga, when I got because I think was it my third going into my junior year at Chat, I got me a Nissan. I think it was a Nissan Sentra. And when I got my oil change, I remember I checked the oil and they didn't change it because it was still black. But they charged me. And I went back and I told them my oil is not changed. They said, yes, it is. Yes, it is. Okay, then why is my oil still black when I look at it? And not only did they change my oil, they gave me a refund.
They should have, because how I'm paying you and you ain't gave me my money back. Um, okay.
Yeah, so
So
and the one thing I remember, my dad went before, like it was like a couple of months before my dad passed. He called me. He said, "What did Francis do to you?" And I said, "Dad,
so
I
he
have."
never knew.
He knew that it was abuse, but he didn't know the lengths of it. And I said, "Dad, I have since forgave this woman. I have let it go, because if I didn't let it go, I I would have probably had ended my life." So I said, "I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to put it back in a bad place. Know that I don't blame you, because you was out there working, doing what you got to do." And I think he was feeling bad, and I'm glad I
Did,
didn't.
well, answer me this, because how long did he date her after your mom kind of changed you guys' arrangement?
Huh, what you mean?
Like, did he continue to date her after
Yeah,
your
because
mama said,
he had my sister. He had my sister with her, and so he stayed with her up until I want to say 98, because she kept leaving him. And I think the last time she left him, he said, "Okay, I'm not coming back for you."
but my
And
answer me this, and I'm not trying to drudge up anything old or anything, but in that situation, did it make you feel some type of way that he continued to date her?
it did. It
Yeah.
did. I think deep down it did. And when he had my sister, at first I kind of resented her, and I didn't even know her.
Wow.
Because I'm like, here another person get to grow up with my dad, and I didn't get a
And
chance
I
to.
don't get to grow up with my dad. Yeah.
But then that all stopped, because when he got married to my stepmom, we went to, it was 2000. It was 2000, because I remember I had just lost my job. 2001. No, 2002. 2002. 2002. I had just lost my job at the Commercial Appeal, and my dad was going to Disney World, was going to Florida, Orlando, with my stepmama, her granddaughter, and then he had my sister Jasmine. At the time, Jasmine was living with him and not with her mom. And side
I would
note,
imagine so.
side note, um, her mama abused her the same way she did me.
I believe you, because I know way in the world you would. I've seen where the other woman will abuse the child, because they feel some type of way or whatever, or mistreat
Right,
the child. I've seen a lot of that.
right,
But she was doing that, and then she seemed like she wasn't stable.
right.
Yeah.
And so and so that gave me a chance to really get to know my little sister. And so now, I call her everything. I remember when my dad found out he had the cancer. um he asked me, I was paying on, I had a Bonneville. I don't know if you remember, I had
I remember that Bonneville child.
that burgundy Bonneville, and I was paying notes on it. I was paying like $197 a month at One Main, and I was almost done paying it off. And he told me, he said, how close are you paying off the note,
Hmm.
paying off the car? And I said,
Hmm.
well, Dad, I think I got about 4 or 5 payments. He said, I'm going to need for you to hurry up and pay that car off, so I can give that car over to you and write that car title to you. Because if something happens to me, your stepmama, and I'm not calling her by name, I'm not giving her that satisfaction.
Right.
Your stepmama is going to take that car. He knew it. When he passed, my stepmother went to my sister Jazz, because my dad was taking care of Jazz. Jazz was still going to school. She was totally dependent on my dad. My dad was taking care of her. He didn't
Right.
mind taking care of us. We were his girls. That's what
Right.
he said.
Right.
That's how he felt like he was supposed to do. Because he used to say he would dance at my wedding, but he pitied the fool that married me because I'm too expensive. That's what he used to say.
Not you too expensive.
Yes, but my stepmother went over to my sister and said, I'm gonna need the keys to your car. And I'm gonna have your phone shut off Monday. Yeah.
What?
Mhm, mhm.
Whoo!
And so one thing my daddy did, we still think that my dad had a will, but we just didn't know where it was, or they destroyed it because she wasn't in it. If my mama would have kept her will as she had with my dad, they would have made her come up with that stuff. But he did make us all beneficiaries to
On
his
his
life.
life policies, which
So
was
she got
smart.
which she got half, and his daughters have half. He had five of us, so we each got 10%. So I said, well, Jazz, you know that at least Dad left you with something. And she said, yeah. She said,
So
yeah.
how
That's
did that make her feel? Because here's my thing with that. Um, there was a here's my thing with that.
mhm.
Um, when you have a situation like that, and I feel like the dads know how the stepmamas are. Either the stepmama is gonna do right by your kids, or they not, because you married to them. You know who they are. And so
Oh,
he kind of had an inkling of how his wife was gonna be towards y'all. So
mhm.
did no one say, "Hey,
we,
let's
we
get a will"?
look, me and my oldest sister, me, Larita, and Cecilia. Well, I don't know about Cecilia, but I know me and Larita, we tried to get with him. We was like, Dad, can we have lunch? Can we have dinner? Because we wanted to talk to him about, do you have any arrangements? What you have your arrangements? But my stepmom will always nag him about how that's disrespecting her.
No, it didn't,
It
because
was,
you got to leave something behind for your kids, and especially
but,
since you were taking care of a whole nother, you were taking care of
but,
a child that was
but
still in school.
right. But my dad, he didn't want to hear the nagging. He did not want to hear the nagging. I remember it was my mom and dad's 50th high school reunion, and they had a little book, a booklet, and they wanted to write the life, which you did after high school.
Yeah.
So my daddy told me what to write because he knew I was the writer in this family.
Hmm.
He did not include my mama. He did not include her. When she read that, she was so mad, and she called me trying to curse me out. And I'm like, hold on, woman. I don't know who you're talking to, but I'm just doing what my dad told me to do. And he told her, he said, yeah, I told her to write this, what I wanted on there. She was like, I kind of figured that Wendy would not disrespect me.
But you called me instead of talking to your husband, who had me
Right,
write it.
right.
Yeah, no.
And so he asked me to add that on there. On the program, she didn't have none of us on the program. Not no pictures or anything. Just a picture of him and her.
Oh,
Yeah.
child.
It was horrible. It was horrible. But you know what? I was like, you know what? It doesn't matter because it's his blood that runs through my veins.
Right.
I bear his initials because we have the same initials, WFE. I was his girl. I was his baby girl. And there was nothing that she could ever do about that. And she was mad that my mom was able to get some social security benefits from
Because
him.
they was married for 20
Yes, for
years,
20
like y'all
something
just
years,
said.
right? Yeah.
As long as you married at least 10 years, you get some Social Security
And
benefits.
they was married for, I think, there was almost to that 10-year mark. Not quite, but almost. But the same morning that we took my mom, she came in, saw my mama, and walked out the door. She was so pissed. She,
Man.
she was so pissed.
So I just,
And she even tried to report my mama for getting too much. And there was a point in time they was about to stop her social security altogether. Yeah. She's dead now. May she rot in hell. Excuse my
oh yeah, you
language.
told me that. Um, so I just, because I feel like a lot of that goes to, dad, you could have did better. I mean, did he not want to, did they have a child? Did they have any kids together?
No, because she was in her 50s. No, no. And I'm so happy.
I'm glad that they didn't have kids together, but I just feel like, if I feel like if anybody's mistreating my kids, right? Now my kids is being disrespectful and out the way.
Mhm.
That's one thing. But
Mhm.
if you are disrespecting my children and my children did not come for you, I just feel like at some point there has to be some type of disconnect. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And I understand people don't want to die alone. I know people don't want to be alone. You know,
Mhm.
a lot of people don't want to be by themselves. They don't want to be single. Like the average person just is not happy with the single life. You know, we talk about that all the time. But I
Yeah.
mean, I draw the line in my kids. Like
Yeah.
it's no way on God's green earth if we gonna be together, we got to and we gonna make this thing work. You have to accept my children, and I think that that was totally dirty. And of course, there's nothing he could do
It
about it.
was nothing, but what the thing was, she put up such a good fake front because we didn't have problems in the beginning.
Right.
But then my mom started telling me some things about her. She was like, "Yeah, when I was married to your dad, because my stepmama and one of my aunts are best friends." And
Mm.
and, and the word on the curb was she slept with my aunt's husband. But how you gonna sleep with my uncle? Or how you gonna sleep with your best friend's husband? And I'm looking at my dad's side. I like, how you gonna sleep with the woman? How you gonna marry a woman that slept with your sister's husband? But that's neither here nor there. I'm gonna let God judge you for all that. But my mom used to say when they in their early years of marriage, she would always flaunt herself around my dad. Yes, yes.
Oh
And
wow.
and she was not a widow once. I think she was a widow 3 times. My dad was her third husband.
Mine, let me tell you something. Now I give you one. But if everybody down every time you get with them, that's a red flag. Okay, both your husbands died. Sis, you know what? This date has been fun. I'm gonna pay for your coffee. I'm gonna pay for mine, and I'm gonna leave you where you at. That's crazy.
It's crazy. It's crazy. She wanted my dad to buy her new things, like a new car. My dad, I was like, you knew who my dad was. My dad didn't believe in new cars. He was like, they're not worth much. As soon as you drive it off, they're going to be depreciated. He lived in Fraser. He was stayed in that same house because his first apartment was on Jackson Avenue. That apartments on Jackson,
The
right
ones
before,
where all the Latinos stay,
I think now,
where all the
right
Latinos
before
in
you get to
Mexico
the
City.
expressway.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Them.
He stayed there. Andrew Jackson. That's what the name was. The Andrew Jackson
They've
Apartments.
changed it since then, but yeah, I
Yeah.
know exactly what you're talking about because it's Little
And
Mexico
then
now.
he stayed there for like a year, and then he moved to Fraser, and it was a 3-bedroom, 1-bedroom house.
Mm-hmm.
When he passed, my dad had added on to the house. He had added a second bathroom, a master bathroom. He added a walk-in closet for her. He added a den because he only had a living room and didn't have a den. And then he added a dining room, and then he added a laundry room. Yeah. Him,
Okay.
and my, him and my
So he
cousin.
remodeled it. He upgraded the house.
Yeah, him and my cousin did him himself. So so when he passed, my stepmother decided she was going to take out a second mortgage. She took out a second mortgage, took the money, left the doors open, and left the house. That house was gutted with this stuff. It had a new air conditioning unit, a hot water heater, hot water and everything. My aunt, her best friend, knew about it and nobody told us. If you didn't
What
want the
you talking?
house,
So wait a minute, because back up. So she and the aunt were still friends?
mhm,
Oh no. Mm-mm.
mhm, mhm.
So did y'all? So Let me back up. Did the family like your mama?
Yeah, my aunt Lucille and my aunt Gladys could not stand my stepmama, and they would call my mama their sister-in-law. And still to this day, they would
Same.
call
Yeah.
her. Uh-huh. My Aunt Pauline, she lives in Columbus, Georgia. She would call me at least once every couple of months just to see how I'm doing. They talk to my mom still. It's the other aunt that, and when my sister Larita called my aunt and asked her, why did y'all not tell us this? She goes off on my sister. I'm like, okay, okay. So, and then knowing that her oldest son went in the house and got the new water heater and everything. You
Oh,
took
so she was in on it. That's crazy.
It's like this. I said, you know what, Lord, this is your fight. I said, I can't be bitter anymore about it. Um, if my suspicions are wrong, I'll repent for it. I said, but I distance myself with certain people on my dad's side of the family.
Right. And rightfully so. Sometimes we gotta protect our peace. We don't have to. And just because we are blood does not make us family, right?
Mhm.
A lot of times people don't understand that or realize that. Oops, I forgot to turn my ring off. um, but we don't understand it.
But
Well
I hear,
understanding it.
but
Yeah,
it was like this. I was at peace because the last words that my dad we had to one another. I love you, Dad. I love you
yeah,
too, baby girl.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
the last words my dad heard from me.
yeah.
And it was rumored that stuff started going on in the house, like supernatural stuff, like keys rattling and stuff being thrown from cabinets and stuff like that. They probably
After
got
your
scared.
dad passed.
Because
Wow.
he probably knew what happened.
I'm sure he knew what happened.
Hmm.
He was there. So I'm pretty sure he knew exactly what happened.
And
I
so,
just,
but I slept good. I was sleeping good at night.
as you should have. There is no way on God's green earth you shouldn't have slept well. I just feel like, I honestly feel like, and of course he has some shortcomings, and definitely
Hmm.
that. I think overall your dad loved you and he loved all his kids.
He loved his
And it
girl.
was
Oh, yeah.
evident, and yeah, and evident in what he did. But I hate that things did not work out between your mom and your dad.
He
Um,
apologized to her. My mom told me at their class reunion, they sat at the same table and stuff. And when my stepmother went to go to the bathroom, he told her, I'm sorry. And he told my aunt Pauline one time when he was in the hospital, he said, me divorcing Clem was the worst mistake I've ever made.
I believe that because
And if I could ever go back, I would have chose my wife over.
them scalawags in the street.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
So
the
my
grass
mom
ain't
had
always greener.
Right. So my mom has since forgave him because she knew if she would have lived on with the bitterness, she probably would have been been to heaven right about now because all that bitterness in her heart. So when she started going to Breath of Life, and she was saved, she got born again. That's when she was delivered from all the anger, all the hurt.
Because it takes time, man.
Yeah,
That's not something that you can easily get past and get
right.
over, right? Um, you can't easily get past that. It's no way to say, hey, um I'm over it. You can't just get over something, especially when you've been in a relationship for that probably
Right.
longer than that. They were married for 20 years, right?
Mhm,
They went to
mhm,
high school together. So they've known each other for
mhm,
many years. So it's not a
mhm.
situation to where, oh, I'm over it. No, that's not something that's so easy to let go. So I understand that. I do understand, forgiveness. I've had to, have conversations with my dad. My dad is still alive, and I'm grateful for my mom and my dad. Um, but I understood, when I was a child, I wanted my mom and dad to stay together. I
Mhm,
definitely wanted that, but I didn't understand what was going on. As an
mhm.
adult, I get it, right? It ain't
Mm-hmm.
meant to be all the time. Everybody
Right.
don't have to be together. And the other thing is, kids deserve to see their parents happy and thriving.
Right.
So if they're not happy in a situation, um, now I'm not saying temporary. I'm not saying I feel like this person over here is better, so let me go over here and try this. But I am saying that they definitely deserve to see parents happy and thriving and living and surviving and going through life, being successful. And um, I know things happen for a reason. And so in my particular situation, my daddy, my mom and dad, I think just weren't compatible because my mom has entrepreneurial spirit. My
Mm-hmm.
mom, she's out there. She let's do this, let's do this. Trying to get my dad. Let's go buy these houses and these properties and let's fix them up and let's rent them out. Let's do da 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 da. If we do blah 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 blah, we can do this. Now later on, after they have gotten divorced, my dad is talking about entrepreneurship now. And he's been talking about it since I was like in high school or whatever. But they were divorced. They had been divorced since I was 8 years old. So, like, my dad was okay with working a job and retiring from that job and this, that, and the
Mm-hmm.
third, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so that was the difference. And instead of saying, hey, let's look at this and let me see, the difference and let's try to get that. They probably had some other issues as well. But the main thing is my thing looking at their situation was compatibility.
Right.
You know, you can't be compatible if you're not compatible, and it can cause a problem later on down the line,
You surely
right?
can.
Yeah, yeah,
I think that's why I
absolutely.
got my dad, my entrepreneurial spirit, because my dad, he owned his own business,
Yeah,
and his dream was to for us to take over the shop. He knew that we weren't mechanics, but he knew that we would have probably hired,
hire people.
had some
So
people
what
to work.
happened with the shop?
That's another story. She done
Wow.
sold it, quick sold it. No, I don't want to. Oh yeah, yeah.
No,
He
wow.
destroyed everything, but
The
his
legacy that he
legacy.
left behind for the kids.
Mm-hmm,
That's crazy. Jealousy is a how you
mm-hmm,
jealous of some kids is beyond me. I don't.
mm-hmm.
I've never been able to understand how a step parent can be
And
jealous of.
one thing I learned when my dad was in that hospital, and she couldn't stop us from seeing my dad because we was
Right,
his kids, but she stopped my aunts and she stopped my cousins because my dad was the patriarch of
right.
of the family. He was the
Yeah,
one they went to. He was the one that helped, his nieces and nephews and great nieces
yeah.
and nephews. And I'm like, they all have the right to say goodbye. Even the two kids he helped raise with the other woman, my stepmother didn't want them to see him. And I said, Francis, you can't do it. I'm Francis. I was like, V, you can't do that. I said, these kids see him as a
They're his
dad.
kids, right?
And he sees them as one of his kids too. So let them say goodbye. If I had to get out of my disdain for them to be an advocate for them because one of my sisters did not too much care for them at all.
I mean, none of you guys did, and rightfully so. But
Right.
at
But
the end of the day,
I'm like, and I went to them, I said, hey, do you want to see dad for the last time? They was crying and looking at me. Yes. They was very surprised that I came up to
because
them.
y'all ain't fool with them, and I get it. I
Right.
understand. I don't mess with you. I don't mess with you. But
Right.
right is right and wrong is wrong.
Right is right and wrong is wrong. And they just made me just like, wow, you can be that hateful to do things like that, to deny folks a right to say goodbye. And when I was put in the exact same situation 6 months later with my husband, whoever wanted to say their goodbyes, let me leave the room so you can say your goodbyes to him.
Yeah, yeah.
I wouldn't. I was like, you know what, cousins, come on, brother, come on. His mom, I'm like, mom, you can go in and out anyway, anytime you want to.
Yeah.
Dad, pops, you can come in and out anywhere you want to. Friends, come on. People that he loved. I was like, I would never do anyone the way my stepmother did my family.
That's crazy, man. That's wild.
So
That's
I said,
wild.
I'm like, dang, I got a book right there.
Man.
Yeah. So, you know, and then I don't know if you saw the video that I did on Veterans Day. Because
I gotta go back and watch it.
she passed away. My stepmother passed away December.
Okay.
I had a cousin who passed away this year. And I think it was like April. No, it was actually March. Because this is when Minister Faye passed, then my cousin passed. I was going to a funeral every Saturday in the month of March.
Wow.
And so when I went to my cousin's funeral, my aunt said, the woman died.
Ah!
And I'm like, are you sure? I said, that's what I heard. I Googled. I saw her obituary. She passed away December last year. It said that she was buried in Pennsylvania, right? So it comes to my surprise on Veterans Day when I go look for my, go to see my dad. I always do a video, and it's like where their cemetery is on Forest Hill, Irene.
Right. Right.
And so as soon as you turn in, he's there on the right. He's the first. He's buried over there, the first section on the right.
Mm-hmm.
So I get there, he's like the fourth row, and I'm always getting mixed up which row it is and which stone it is. So I'm walking and I'm always doing a live because I know my sisters. I have 3 sisters now that doesn't live in Memphis, and the other sister, she's still trying to muster up the strength to
To
go
come.
to come.
Yeah.
So with me doing this, it's like them going with me. And so I'm walking and I see her name on the back of my dad's stone. I said, huh? I said, y'all, I gotta go.
I did see that. Yes, I did. I saw because we talked. Me and you talked about it before we did an episode of our pod. Yes,
I said,
I did see that. I saw that.
I said, where did they do with her body from the time of December? So y'all had enough money to just bring her up and put her there to be spiteful. She should have been happily buried in Pennsylvania where the thing said she was buried.
I don't think that she ever get. I don't know. Did she go to Pennsylvania? Maybe they didn't have the money to bury her up in Pennsylvania.
What happened to the body all that time? She been passed on since December.
Yeah, so let's talk about that because
And
people
then
don't have life insurance and different things in place to take care of certain things, so they have
and
to figure it
then
out.
it was freshly done because the ground was, you can tell the ground was repaved.
Yeah,
You
they
know.
might. I don't know what happened then. I'm not sure. Ain't no telling.
But I said now,
That's crazy.
and then my sister called me and she said, "What the frick?" But she said,
Wow, that's crazy.
"It is crazy." I gotta go.
I remember that because I saw it and I was like, "Whoa, wait a minute."
And I said,
That's
now
crazy.
I gotta look at her name.
Whenever you go up there, yo,
And her name will be the first thing I see because the way the stone is, his name is right here, and they put the spouse name right here.
also, if you're looking for the tombstone and say you go down the wrong aisle or the wrong row, you'll see her name first before you
Uh
see
huh.
it.
Uh
Oh,
huh.
mm-mm.
I said, dang. I said, Dad,
That's messed up.
I'm gonna try. I said, Dad. I said, I know you probably rolling in your grave right about now because in May I saw him May. Her name wasn't behind there. I saw
I
him
don't know what they did or
in
how they did that.
September. September, her name wasn't on there.
Mm-mm-mm.
So I don't know. I don't know if she's been there and they just now had
Maybe they just put a name on there. I don't know.
Right. I don't know. I don't know. But the ground was freshly done. I called my aunts. I said, you know what? I said, Aunt Lucille, they done buried that heifer with my daddy. And she was like, really? Because my aunts could not stand. My Aunt Gladys and my Aunt Lucille and my Aunt Pauline could not stand her at
That's
all.
crazy.
I don't know about my Aunt Jean, but I know my Aunt Pearlie Mae was her best friend.
Pearlie May seemed like they was two they was birds of a feather. They flocked together. That's crazy, man. Man, well, we're gonna wrap this episode up.
Mm,
I again, people miss it. And of course I know you had to go through some things to get to the point to where you can deal with your dad, on a regular basis. And I know that was hard. I know that it's hard in those situations because, um life is hard, right?
But
Life is
even though I went through what I went through with the girlfriend, my love for my dad never stopped.
No, it
It,
didn't.
it
No, no,
never
no, no.
stopped.
And I don't think we ever. I don't think our love for our parents stop. Right. I think though that we get hurt from certain things that are done or certain choices that they make, and I think with that you had to kind of grapple with that. Um, as far as, hey, I mean, he didn't know about the abusive situation, right? But just the fact that he chose to walk away from his family to go and
Mhm.
start a whole other family,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? And
And
then that dealt with your trust issues, that messed with you being able to move forward. In your mind, you like, why get married if they just gonna cheat? Like, that's not a healthy way to look at relationships.
mhm.
So even what we do as parents, that affects our kids. And I believe that as parents, we need to have successful relationships and have successful examples of a
Mhm.
relationship, how it goes. And if it's a situation that is not good, we need to steer away from, because our kids need to see us happy.
and,
uh
and that's so true because when I got married, I think Josh saw was me and him happy.
yeah.
Me and him happy, me and him having fun together and stuff like that. I really wanted Josh to see a successful relationship, because at first Joshua and Ren was not getting along because Ren was not his dad. And then, we tried to talk to Josh's dad, but Josh's dad was like, y'all aggressive, y'all too aggressive, this, that. Because Ren was like, look, your son acting out because you're not in his life. You need to do
They don't
something.
even understand that.
And
Mm-mm.
so, he was like, you know what? I want to adopt Joshua. He really wanted to adopt Joshua. And I think if he was still alive today, Joshua would
Joshua
have,
would have been adopted. Yeah.
he would have been Edinburgh Smith
Yeah.
behind Joshua's name.
Yeah.
And if you ask Joshua, where's your dad? My dad died 10 years ago.
Oh wow. So he understands now. At the time he
Yeah.
did. And little boys it's different, right? So and with that, I mean, and with little girls, it's a different dynamic, right? So with little
Hmm.
girls, we look at our dads, that's the first example of a male that we see, right?
Hmm.
So if
Hmm.
they veer away from anything as far as what that example looks like,
Hmm.
it becomes a problem for us and problematic in the choices that we make as far as dating is concerned, and the choices that we make as far as marriage is concerned. It kind of steers us away from certain things, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And something that might look right or may look healthy to us may not be healthy, or there could be a healthy situation looking
Right.
us in the face and we're
Hmm.
running from it because we're used to calamity, because this is all we've seen, this is all we know. Whereas little boys, if they don't have their dad there to kind of mold them in the way that they should go, it becomes a problem. And then they become our problems later on when it comes to having mates and husbands and
Hmm.
that sort of thing. So I think across the board, fathers are very, very important, right?
Very
But they
important.
miss it. We not, let me say this. My dad's not perfect. Wendy's dad's not perfect. I don't know a perfect dad, right? I don't know one perfect daddy out there. They've messed up. We may not know what they've done. We may know what they've done.
Hmm.
And there are different examples of that. But what we have to do is we have to move forward as a family. Now, if your daddy was crazy and abusive and took you
Mm-mm.
down kind of crazy changes. That's a
That's what it is.
different conversation for a different time, and I get
Let
that.
me
Um,
say.
but what we need to do is we need to be able to grapple with forgiveness and moving
Mhm.
forward. And I commend you for doing that, even at an early age, just knowing, hey, that wasn't right what dad did, but that's still my dad and I love him and I'm gonna move forward.
I'm gonna tell you a
Um,
funny story. Graduation, University of Memphis, 99. My dad, he was late. And I'm sitting there
mhm.
and I see my dad. He has on a gray suit, some cowboy boots on, and a cowboy hat. And this girl sitting beside me saying, "Who this ninja coming down here with a cowboy?" I said, "That's my daddy." What and what?
Right? And that's my daddy. Wow. Don't be checking my daddy.
Don't be checking my
Yeah.
dad. My dad was looking good in his cowboy boots
His
and
cowboy boots in
his
his
suit.
head. Yeah.
He was happy
Wow.
that he had a. I was because I was the first daughter to graduate college.
Oh wow.
My sister Larita, she was at Memphis State when University of Memphis was Memphis State,
It was Memphis State.
and at the time when they got a divorce, and it hurt her so much, she just dropped out of school and joined the Navy.
Wow. Oh, well, she went to Navy.
She was in the
Did
Navy.
Loretta ever go back to school?
Later on she did.
She did. Okay. Because
Yeah,
she
she
had
got her.
benefits. Now, look, if she went to Navy, she had benefits. She could have did
Yeah,
it.
yeah. But I was the first to get my bachelor's degree. My other sister, she went to Christian Brothers, and then she dropped out and got married. So I was the first to get a bachelor's degree. And I
That's
was so happy that he was able to see me
see
through
that.
that.
Yeah, absolutely.
The only one regret is that he didn't get a chance to walk me down the aisle. That's why I didn't have a wedding. I just me and
I was wondering because I was like, hold on, we just saw your picture. I was like, wait a minute, is you married? Is that what had happened? And we didn't get no invite. We just,
right.
I
And it
couldn't
was
be
just
there
two
for the
months.
justice of the peace.
It
Look.
was look, it was 2 months after my dad passed.
Right.
And I was like, I don't want no wedding. We was talking about it. He was like, you want to just have a wedding? Like, no, let's go ahead and just do it.
Gotcha.
Why wait?
Understandable. Right. Understandable. Understandable. Okay. Well, we're gonna wrap this up. We thank you
Okay.
guys for joining us. Thank you, Wendy, for sharing your story. I'm gonna have you back because we do need to talk about the widow, life after losing a spouse. So I definitely am
Mhm.
gonna have you back. We'll record the episode soon. Thank you guys for joining us. Make
Okay.
sure you are following on all the platforms. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.